architecture tool? Yeah, a few? Oh, good heavens, we've actually got as few as I'd hoped. Because very often when I go to a gig, the first thing they say is they have a requirements process to buy an enterprise architecture tool.
There's a spreadsheet.
No, for example, I heard of a particular company which went out and bought 2,000 licenses for one of the high-end tools, and we believe they use 6. This is, of course, a bank. They like spending other people's money. The theme I'm on about is that when we look at enterprise architecture particularly, rather than purely IT architecture. Now, for example, the best one I've seen of what I would call an IT enterprise architecture tool. This is done for a company called BizDesign, who I don't like that much. But if anyone is into Archimate, does anyone know that? Yeah? Gerben Weerder, his book on Archimate, Mastering Archimate, very strong recommendation if you're interested in Archimate. But Gerben runs his EA tool from the CMDB, and it's complete closed loop. It's 25,000 entities that he's maintaining continuously. So it's quite a large model. But most of the models that we see, no one maintains this paper. And I remember going to, I think it was Royal Mail actually, asked them if they'd modelled any processes. And they said, yes, he said, and he showed me the entire wall full of models. Yeah? He said, yeah, we've got all of our process models. The only thing we know for certain is that that isn't how the work is done. So, the point I'm on about is that when we get to enterprise architecture, we're not producing software. We're not producing blueprints. Most of our work, the most important tool that we have in the whole of enterprise architecture is actually that. Most of the work is relentlessly political. I've spent most of my time in cafes trying to catch people. Or have conversations, because most of our job is about connecting that person to that person. I've been with projects, I remember our RFID project at Australia Post, where they had 3 different groups were working on RFID with completely incompatible hardware that all had to be mounted in exactly the same place. And no one had thought of checking. Our job was to get them together and say, you, and you. We don't mind which one, we're not going to make the decision, but you can only have one. And it can't be the one where all the data, government data, is owned by IBM, which is what one of them had proposed. So, the real issue we're dealing with, how many people here are familiar with the old group dynamics model? Forming, storming, norming. Does everyone know that one? Pretty much. Right. Here's another way of looking at it, because if we go forming, always works better if the pen actually works. Tends to be a help.
Does it have or
No. I'll draw it with a frog if necessary. So forming, look, there we are, nice black things. The only trouble is my handwriting is unreadable. Child of 2 doctors, that's my excuse. Forming, storming, norming, performing, and deliberately down here, adjourning. No, very often you won't get that one mentioned, but that's, so if you like, it's purpose, what the heck is where we are about? People, if you don't deal with this, you're going to get fights anyway, usually just when you're starting the work. Sorting out what plan you're going to do, doing the work. How many people here have done TOGAF? Yeah? You know what's missing in TOGAF H? Benefits realization and lessons learned. They go straight on to how do we get the next gig. They don't actually do, have we got any value out of this? The journeying is about the ending of the story. Where's our value? How do we connect back through to here? Now, if you go to the design world, they have this thing called the squiggle. Anyone come across this? Yeah, you know, Sally. This is what the real world is like. It isn't just, let's do the job and we've got the design and here's the roadmap. It's what the feep are we doing, we haven't a clue. It's all over the place, where the pen doesn't work as well. Try the other. Right? I know it doesn't work, but never mind, you know what I mean. It's sort of like, this is the part of the point, isn't it? It doesn't work. Right? And then you slowly settle out with the storming, you get all the arguments that goes backwards and forwards and sideways and around, and slowly you settle out to something resembling a plan. Now, the so-called enterprise architecture tools, they are there. What support do they give us up back here? None. But here's the booby trap. If you're in an agile world, it loops round. So if your things up here can't help you deal with the next bit, they're actually not much use. So what I want you to do, as you go back home, or as you cry quietly into the next cup of wine, is to notice how you record what you do in the messy bits. How do you connect it back to the last time? There was a gig we did at Aero Research Lab. There was what we nicknamed the place the RSPCA, the Royal Society for the Promotion of Cruelty to Airframes. We were working on the F-111, which, when it had been brought into Australia, the wings fell off. So the minister didn't really want to be the minister who bought aircraft whose wings fell off, so all of the reports had been heavily laundered. When we came back to look at it again 30 years later, we had a whole load of reports that were actually wrong. And we needed to talk to the people who actually did the work. Unfortunately, they were dead. And we were not entirely joking when we said we needed to hold a séance. So, that's the level of mess that we get into. Look at your core banking systems. Look at the joy of dealing with the year 2000, Y2K. Right? You had to go back and find an awful lot of COBOL programs. Yeah? Notice what's going to happen in 2032, is it? When Unix dates go negative, same problem. All over again and everyone's forgotten about it. Right? So, it's a loop. Continuous loop. It's fractal, that funny word, fractal. It loops within itself, within itself, within itself. But half of it is a total mess. So what are the tools that you have to work with the mess? That's the question I want to leave you with. How do you deal with the mess? How do you connect it back to support that loop of continuous change?
Right, I hope you lot found that very useful. To wrap up, the videos for the event will be online. I don't know when. Hopefully this week. The slides as well? Well, give us a week or two. Yeah, so the slides will be online, the videos will be online.
I've got a slide, if anyone wants, I've got a
The
slide
tool
that
you can download anyway.
So.
Yeah, but I'll boot up and I'll show it to you. Actually, I'll pull it up. But for now, there's wine, sandwiches outside. Help yourself. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
And the AGM is in January.
Now, if you lot were on the committee, you could come to the Christmas party. We are looking for new volunteers.
Armin, do you have tools?
I can't believe it's just working on this. The main thing is, particularly if you don't ask for